All right, I'm joined next by Paul McGinley. You've seen him all over Sky Sports, Golf Channel this past week at the Masters, and he's been going there for many years. You've said in the past, '86, Jack Nicklaus's win has been one of the great memories that you've had for Augusta National. But Paul, how are you doing this morning?
Good, not too bad, Garrett. Good morning to you.
Yeah, well, I just went off the top there with Nicklaus in '86. Is that still number one when it comes to Masters memories for you, or Rory? Where does this all fit?
Yeah, I mean, just quickly off the top of my head on the show, we were asked our best majors memories, and certainly I go back to the ones I remember the most vivid. And certainly Jack Nicklaus, I was, not even 20 years of age. I remember that strongly and his charge through the back nine. Back then, you could only see the back nine. We saw it on the BBC. Sky hadn't started. And all you saw was the last hour and a half coverage, or maybe hour and 2 hours coverage on a Sunday is kind of all that you saw. And I remember the charge, him coming through. It was magnificent. The other one I remember, my first memory of a major was 1977, and that was Jack against the Duel in the Sun against Tom Watson. And I've always been a Watson fan since that, and how he performed heroically against Nicholas in that. But I'd certainly put this one up with it in terms of sheer drama, the emotional attachment I had because I so desperately wanted Rory to get over the line. So I would put that up there. Obviously, I'm missing out all of Tiger's wins there, and certainly in '97, I think he shook golf by its foundations the way he won around there. So yeah, I probably should find somewhere to put that in there. I'm not sure where yet, but I think the game needed a number of things. It needed a megastar again, and Rory, no doubt about, is the most charismatic player in the game, up there certainly with Bryce, and I think the fact that he's won the Grand Slam has moved them ahead as the most charismatic and identified player in the sport. It needed that. There's been a lot of grubbiness and a lot of wrong talk about golf over the last 2 or 3 years with the division and the split and the acrimony and all the stuff that's gone on. It needed some positive headlines. And then on top of that, it needed Rory to come through and win a major again. I'm so fed up of the criticism he's got and the what if, and despite the fact that he was such a dominant player in the last 10 years on both DP World Tour as well as European Tour, with obviously the stick that he was constantly beaten with was the majors, and he's lost it, and he doesn't have the heart, and he doesn't got the bottle, and all of those things, and he knew that as well, and the pressure that was on him on Sunday was ginormous. So I'm thrilled for him as a person more than anything else that he's come through that and come out the other side, and that criticism will now have to go to bed.
Hmm. Well, as you mentioned criticism there, I do have to think that you had that comment where you said he's not everyone's cup of tea. That was kind of your initial thought there on TV. I think it was on the Sky Sports broadcast.
Mm.
What in terms of clarifying that, or a couple of days later, like how I've seen you on Twitter kind of speaking about that a bit, but how would you speak about it now?
Yeah, on reflection, live TV and in the excitement of the moment, it was probably the wrong term to use. What I was trying to do was create two different dynamics here in redemption story of the backdrop of the criticism that he has constantly got for the last 10 years, particularly in the last 2 or 3 years, and the criticism that came his way after Pinehurst. And it was very personal. And I know he felt that. I wanted to use that as a backdrop to say, look, this guy has come through in the heat of moment against all the odds, where mentally he was on the floor and somehow he dragged himself off it, to get back into the playoff and finish strongly, in terms of making a birdie on the playoff hole to get over the line. And I was trying to use the two things to show the human element here, because the audience we had on Sky was not just a Sky one that wanted to know about stats. And the Masters of Sunday, it was a much bigger one. People who don't normally tune into golf, and I wanted to represent to them the human element here of what Rory has gone and the criticism that's come his way. And it was the wrong term to use. He's not everybody's cup of tea. I meant to say the criticism that's come his way. That's what I should have done on reflection. But the heat of the moment in live TV. I still didn't think it was a massive deal because he has been so heavily criticized. But of course, social media nowadays, it takes it and it blows it up. Like I didn't want Rory to win. You know me, Garrett, and anybody who's watched any golf TV or anything over the last 10 years will know that, I've been the number one fan in his corner and defended him so strongly in so many different ways. Knew that he had to evolve a bit. And I've been saying all week long on Golf Channel, this is a new Rory. This is a different Rory. And I was really confident going out on Sunday. I said it on Saturday night. The game needs Rory to win, and anybody who loves golf should be cheering for Rory McIlroy to get over the line tomorrow. Again, that came a lot of criticism the other way. Oh, you're always saying that, you're always this about
Can't
Rory,
win.
that about Rory. It's like,
Paul
yeah,
can't
where
win.
where do you win? So I probably used the wrong term, and the attack dogs on social media went for me by using that term. And what I was trying to do was create two different scenarios and represent to the broader audience the human element story, the human story here.
Mm. Well, you've always struck me as a very positive, kind of upbeat attitude to the way you view life and your work. And I'm just curious, like when you do get these negative comments, how do you compartmentalize everything? How do you kind of shut down what you don't want to hear?
Well, most of the stuff that comes my way, I kind of brush it off. But that one really really hurt me because I thought, oh my God, don't tell me in the hour of Rory's success
The
that I'm going to
moment.
be seen as a guy who didn't want him to win. It's like, are you kidding me? So I felt the need to normally I don't react to anything on social media, but I felt the need. I had to go out and correct the narrative there because it was getting out of hand. That people thought that by saying I wasn't, he's not everybody's cup of tea, that I was in that camp. So yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a difficult world of media, Garrett. Now it really is. I'm doing TV now 10 years, and certainly social media and the people that have direct access. And the herd mentality that jumps in behind one little comment. If you'd have listened to that interview on Sky, 99.9% of what I said in that interview was so positive, where I was so happy about Rory. But because I opened with, he may not be everybody's cup of tea, but this is a great human story, and the fact that I used cup of tea became the story. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it did affect me because I don't want to be seen to be not in Rory's camp in his one moment of need, having defended him so stoically over all of the years. And the things that came his way to then in his hour of moment when everybody else is jumping on the bandwagon, who weren't on the bandwagon, they kind of threw me off.
100%. Yeah, I can see how that could happen. You keep referring to the human element, and you've called this in a previous radio interview yesterday in Ireland. You're more happy for Roy McIlroy, the human, the person, to get this win, even more so than the golfer. And tell us about that side a little bit. Why
Mm.
you're so happy for Rory.
Well, when you're sitting on the outside looking in like Rory was in terms of these major championships for 10, 11 years, having been, if you take it over the 11 years, the most dominant player in the game. Yes, you can say Scotty Scheffler in the last 2 years is the most dominant, but I'm talking about, broadly over the last 11 years. A lot of players have come and go. Brooks has come and go, and he doesn't have the consistency of Rory. Jordan has come and go, he doesn't have the consistency of Rory. And Rory putting himself in contention time after time after time, and falling. Not winning in St Andrews was another one that really hurt when he,
Mm-hmm.
on a golf course that really suited him to not get over the line there and let Cameron Smith come in on the blind side. And then all of the conjecture that went on about Liv and where how stoically he was anti it at the start. And then he kind of softened his position. And again, the attack dogs that came at him because of that. Um, and being around him as much as I have been, and particularly this year, I've spent a lot of time with him because I was an ambassador for his team in Boston Common at the TGL. So every week, every match, I was with him, doing clinics during the day, and then with him in the evening times when he was at the match and introducing sponsors and stuff like that. So I've been around him, and I could see this evolution. Having known him as long as I have done, and I could see the focus in him, and I could see the mentality changing. I could see how he was playing the game differently. I could see the body language was was a little bit more of a throwback to the kind of pointy elbows, as I call it, that he had that kind of attitude where he wanted to prove people wrong. I've said it on TV. I'll give Rotella a lot of credit for this. I'll give Bob, well, yeah, certainly
Brad?
Bob, but also Brad Faxon a huge amount of credit for how he's improved his putting. A lot of credit for this, but most of all, the credit goes to Rory. And yesterday was a microcosm, or Sunday was a microcosm of Rory McIlroy, the golfer, where you're knocked on the floor. Everybody is calling you this, that, and everything, and oh, he's choking again. Oh, here he goes again. Typical Rory. And you manage to get up off the floor and swing some heavy punches coming down the line. And then the heaviest punch of all, the knockout punch, was a second shot into 18. You got to give credit to that. I know myself as a golfer what it's like, Garrett, being out there. I never played at the elite level that Rory is. Of course, I played in major
Mm.
championships, but never had, coming down the stretch to win a major championship, although I had good finish, but never came in the back door rather than being in the center of attention. So to come off the floor and throw a heavyweight punch the way he did, and there's two tee shots up 18 on Sunday, both in normal play as well, which is not an easy tee shot, as well as in the playoff, were fantastic. And I'm just so full of admiration for how he's done it.
Hmm. Well, you know what? He had two great tee shots on 18, as you mentioned, in regulation and then in the playoff. But not many people have been talking now after the fact that on the 72nd hole, that approach shot, he hits a wedge into the bunker. He doesn't get up and down. He misses a 4-footer. I mean, there was so much going on. You talk about the yo-yo, the roller coaster. I mean, my God, on 17, he hit it to 2 feet. The percentage on that, Jamie Kennedy was saying on social media, was 0.037%. It was just unreal to be able to hit it that close on 17, but then to hit it in the bunker on 18 and knock it up and down. I mean, this really was a roller coaster. How do you look at that with how Rory played?
Well, I look upon it as, I think it's a bit of fate, to be honest. I don't think he hit his best shot on 17. And certainly the way he was talking to it when it was in the air, go, 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 he was pleading with it. In other words, he felt himself that it was going to be short. Um, Sometimes you hit great golf shots and they don't finish close to the hole. Sometimes you hit not great golf shots, and they do finish close to the hole. So there's a hand of fate involved here sometimes. And I think the hand of fate finally stood up for Rory and gave him a break at an important time. You go back to LA Country Club a couple of years against Wyndham Clark, and I think it was the 15th, the par five, when he hit that wedge and it kind of floated right. I think that was another moment. The minute he hit it and the ball was in the air and he's pleading with it, I think that's what he was referring to. Oh, don't hit it in position X in the lip of a bunker where I can't recover at this moment in time. But the hand of fate kind of said, no, I'm going to give you 2 extra yards in the air here, and then I'm going to let it release up to the flag. And I'm going to give you a 2-footer for birdie with a one-shot lead. Um, so sometimes that happens. Sometimes that happens.
Right.
And I think if anybody deserved the hand of fate coming out at the right time, it was that. But he also helped himself as well with some great shots under pressure. And then some not so great shots under pressure. I mean, you talk about the highs and lows of Rory, and I think the last 9 holes on the biggest canvas that golf has, i.e., the last 9 holes in Augusta, showed us that you had the great, the bad, and the ugly. The ugly was the third shot into 13. Honestly, Garrett, I mean, you would have hit it into 15 feet
Me,
there, or
yeah.
20 feet, or
Well, thank
certainly
you.
certainly wouldn't have hit it in the water, anywhere but the water. I mean, the whole world left and the whole world behind the flag. He's 90 yards. His wedge play has been good, and he hits it in a one place. I mean, that's honestly, it's a high handicap shot that he would hit it in that water. But then he turns up 2 holes later and hits this shot on 15, which could go down as one of the greatest shots ever hit in Masters history, maybe even in golf history, to hit in as close as he did with a swinging 40-yard hook. Uh, if anything represent Rory McIlroy on his career, that was it.
The shot on the approach on 15.
Well, the good and the bad, the good and the bad.
Mm.
The fact that he hit it in the water on 13 correlated against the second shot that he hit the 15.
Microcosm of his career, as you talk about there.
Mm.
I just have to say there was a moment as he misses his putt on 18 to win his first Masters, But as he leaves, to me, I think little moments are so important, right? He sees Poppy, kisses Poppy, he kisses his wife, sees his kid. Remember, Harrington did the same thing. He saw his son when he thought he had given it away at Carnoustie in '07. So I'm just curious, like, do you think that played a factor at all, or what did you make of just kind of that little exchange, that little moment?
It showed that the human Rory was still engaged. Showed the importance of his family and what they mean to him. That he was able to reach out, and also the fact that he reset. And Harry, I read where Harry said, because I didn't see Rory when he finished. Um, Harry said something to him on the way down, talk about a reset. And Bob Rotella wasn't there. I looked for him closely on the TV, but I couldn't see him. I guess he'd left. But Harry said something to him on the way in the cart on the way down to the playoff, which I think had a big significance in terms of resetting Rory, because this was all about a reset. It was getting back into the mindset you needed to be. And he said, "Well, Rory, you'd have taken the two of us sitting in this cart on the way to a playoff on Monday morning, wouldn't you?" He said, "Yeah, you know what? You're right." And those little things are what reset you. I remember, just to give you an example, in Ryder Cup, myself and Padraig played against Tiger and Davis Love in 2004. And we were two down after two and walking to the third tee box. And we played the first two holes poorly. And I said to Padraig, Padraig was struggling with his game. He hadn't played well in the morning. And I said to him, I said, you know what? Let's give us double bogey in the first hole and give us par in the second hole. We're two over par. Instead of playing against Davis and Tiger here, let's play against the golf course. Let's see if we can break par. Let's see if we can play from three under here. Let's reset in terms of stroke play, and forget about who we're playing. And immediately, he kind of said, you know what, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And it's kind of a reset. So resets are really important in this game because you're going to hit bad shots. You're going to be in bad situations. And sometimes it's something that somebody says to you that drags you out of that slump and puts you in a positive mindset, or a different mindset, recalibrates you. And I think that you know, I don't. I'm interested to speak to Rory about that, but I really think that could have been a big reset moment there. What Harry said to him, and if he did, and it was a great thing to say.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, that's what you're paid for if you think about it. Like, earn your keep. I mean, 72nd hole, your guy just blew a 4-footer to win the title he's been chasing for 14 years, for his whole life, but really should have had 14 years ago. So that's brilliant timing. And I'm just curious too, Harry, he's got such a really good way of reading Rory, but what do you make of Harry and what he's brought to Rory's game, and what he gets in all of this?
Well, I've never been. Again, you talk about the criticism, and Harry's another person who's got unbelievable criticism over the years.
Right.
Yeah, and I've never been. I've always defended Harry, and I've never think that he's the issue here. And the reason is different players require different things from caddies. Some players, like
Mm,
Darren Clark, wanted to be micromanaged by a caddy. He loved to be told by Billy Foster when he was playing at his best, what'll I do here? What club do you think? What shot do you think? And to a large extent, Billy really um, uh, closely managed, micromanaged uh, Darren, and gave him some great feedback in terms of what shot he saw. And if Darren saw the same shot, that kind of empowered Darren to go ahead and play it. And that was that relationship, which was very successful. Then you go on to Rory McIlroy. Rory McIlroy is more than anybody else in the game. He's his own man. You think, and this is much to be admired about him. You think about all the disappointments that have come his way. You know, the coaches never got fired. The caddy, certainly in the last 10 years, since JP, has not got fired despite coming close. And, after all of the things that happened in the last few years of letting opportunity slip, a lot of players would have fired the caddy or fired somebody around them in order to go at it again. And Rory is the kind of guy that thinks, I'm the guy that fires the arrows. Your job is to load me with the arrows, and then my job is to fire them.
mm.
So he doesn't need to be micromanaged by a caddy. He needs somebody on his shoulder that he knows more than anything is in his corner. And I think that's what Harry brings. Also, if you look at Rory's mistakes over the years, you can't put them down to bad clubs, to bad decisions off a tee. Uh, even though there was criticism that he should have hit 3 wood off the tee box in Pinehurst on 18. I don't think so. I think something like 90% of the players playing that hole had hit driver, and Rory's probably the best driver of the golf ball in the game. And he was out there to win that tournament at that time. I don't think that was. It's easy in hindsight to look back saying, "Oh, if he'd have played for par and hit iron off the tee or 3 wood, that would have been safe." I'm not so sure. Um, so I don't think that the misses that Rory has had in these major championships has been down to the caddy mistakes. They've been down to, hitting wrong shots. Particularly missing putts in Pinehurst last year, or not putting well enough in St
St.
Andrews
Andrews,
more than
yeah,
anything else.
didn't make much
Uh,
at
and
all. Yeah,
and that's why I think Brad Faxon has been a big addition to his team because again you're looking to marry, and Harry marries Rory in terms of what they need. I think Brad Faxon marries Rory in terms of the putter that he is. He's a very creative golfer. He plays very quick, one of the quickest players in the game, and he plays with a lot of instinct. And that's exactly where Brad Faxon is. He's not a scientist. He's not into all the science that so many putting teachers are nowadays. He's a creative. He brought creativity to Rory's putting and fun to Rory's putting. And that's a really good marriage with how Rory hits the golf ball. So there's a good blend, and the caddy is a good blend. And that's the advice that I give to any young players going out. Make sure that you pick a team around you that marry you as a golfer, and don't go for a yin and a yang. If you're a creative player, don't go for a scientific coach.
Hmm.
If you're a scientific player, don't go for a creative putting coach. It's very important to blend the team around you with the kind of person that you are. So Justin Rhodes, for example, is a scientific player, and he
Methodical. Yeah,
yeah, sort of Phil Kenyon, who's a very scientific putter, putting coach, is a great blend with him. Scotty Scheffler is quite scientific in how he plays, and it's a really good blend to have Phil coaching him putting. It was a good marriage too. So not every coach is for every player.
hmm. Well, you just mentioned Justin Rose. I'm just curious. Being so close in his mid 40s, we know the clock is ticking. He's at the twilight of his career. There's so much grace and perspective that we saw from emanating from Justin. What did you make of him?
I'm disappointed for him. It was a shame for him that Rory was in the way. I think all the crowd.
History was in the way. Yeah.
History was in the way, fate was in the way. He happened to be the guy in the hand of fate was going to bestow this on Rory in some ways. He's been back-to-back runner-up now in majors. He was second at the Open last year, wasn't he?
Uh,
He's lost 2 playoffs for the Green Jacket.
mm,
Uh, so he's got one major championship, and maybe the golfing gods have got something more in store for Justin. He's a true professional, and I really felt sorry for him. He did heroically well on Sunday. I think he looked back in the whole picture of things. He made 10 birdies on Sunday, and again, what a putt he made on 18 to put the pressure on Rory. Uh, but he'd probably look back on Saturday as where he lost it more than anything. He lost a lot of initiative there on Saturday. But still, what a great performance. And it looks like he's going to be a great addition to our Ryder Cup team come September with the experience that he has. He may well qualify for the team now, but if he doesn't, I'm sure Luke will be looking very favourably on him as a pick. He brings a lot to the party.
hmm. Well, speaking of bringing a lot to the party, we know over the years Sergio Garcia has brought so much to that team room. His energy, his just fight desire for Team Europe. And I'm just curious, like as you look ahead, do you think, as things are speaking now, would you, if you were Luke Donald, would you pick Sergio?
Yeah, well, I don't want to speak for Luke for the start. I kind of sit on the shoulder as strategic director now of our Ryder Cup team, and I certainly won't tell Luke what to do.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of dynamics that will go into who his picks are for everybody, including Sergio. So the dynamics around Sergio are, yes, he's joined the European Tour and he's going to be eligible now to be picked for the Ryder Cup and has paid his fines. So we have another option. He's playing fantastically well on Live. We've got some raw statistics, and we don't know how accurate they are, but the raw statistics that we have seem to indicate that his underlying statistics in terms of striking the golf ball are excellent. You can also see that in his results, where he's already won and has been really strong contender. Uh, but it's apples with apples. And I remember when I was in 14, when I was captain, there was a lot of noise that came from maybe Bernard Langer getting a pick. And he'd lapped the field at the British seniors. I remember Monty coming out strongly and saying Paul should consider this guy for a pick for the Ryder Cup. He's playing as well as ever, even though he's in his mid 50s
Mid
now, and
50, yeah.
da 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 da. Uh, and I remember my answer was, well, it's hard to relate where Bernhard is because he's not playing toe to toe with the guys who are going to be on the team on golf courses that are set up like Gleneagles will be. So unless Bernhard plays a number of events, which is unlikely, uh, that are related to that, I can't pick him. And I would say the same thing for I would say the same thing for Sergio here. Unfortunately for him, because he's playing a full live schedule and doesn't look to be playing much in Europe, that it'll be his performance in the four majors more than anything else that will dictate whether Luke is going to consider him for a pick or not. So one is gone now. Um, and he's not in the Open Championship as far as I know at the moment. I don't know if he's in all next three of the majors, but he may well qualify.
He's in
So
the
his
PGA
performance,
Championship. Yeah.
he's in the
At
PGA
least
now,
that one.
okay,
Yeah.
but he's not in the Open yet. So how he performs in the next three majors, if he gets into them, I think that would be the biggest determining factor on how much Luke considers him for a pick.
Hmm. Would you consider like this team room aspect as well? Like obviously, like there's so much factors at play, right?
There's a lot of factors at play, and again, I can't speak for Luke. The team he picks around him is very personal to him. He
Hmm.
knows all the dynamics. One of the reasons we put, our first throw of the dice here, and we're looking at this Ryder Cup very differently than any away match we've ever done before, Garrett. And one of the things that we really are going to shake the tree here and come at this differently than we've ever done before. We know how difficult the challenge is. We know going into New York is going to be incredibly difficult. We know how strong America is going to be. So we got to be ready for this. And our first throw of the dice here was putting an ex-captain in play. So not putting a new captain in play who had to learn the ropes of being a new
Hmm.
captain and what captaincy is about, as well as the difficult dynamic of playing away from home. We felt that putting an ex-captain in who knew the job, married with the challenge of going away from home, would be our best way of preparing. So, thankfully after quite a bit of consideration, Luke decided that he wanted to go again. And we're thrilled that he did because he was obviously our choice, particularly coming off how well he did in Rome. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. That performance by Europe, and I don't think the American media have picked up on this enough. They want to keep throwing darts and criticism towards the American team. I go at it the other way, and I would say that performance from Europe in Rome, 1-12, as well as the dynamic that Luke created behind the scenes, was the best ever performance from a European team in a Ryder Cup. And I don't think with where we are that we could have been beaten that week because what we done, how we prepared, and the form of our players going in. Remember, we the top three players in the world at that time, in terms of we had Victor, we had
John
Rory,
Rahm.
and of course, we had John Ram,
Yeah.
all flying and on form at that time. And the dynamic that Luke created was brilliant. The pairings, everything, home support. We were an unbelievable force there. And a lot of criticism has come Zach's way. And I think that's been somewhat unfair because he came up against, in my view, the strongest ever European team that we've ever had.
Yeah. Well, I just have to think you're so passionate about the Ryder Cup, having won as a captain, being as a player in the past, but you speak of this juggernaut that was created 2 years ago. And now we go to New York, this opportunity ahead of Team Europe. How exciting is this in the history of the Ryder Cup? Like, how do you contextualize this as you go in there as a strategic leader?
I would just say that um, it's the most difficult challenge an away team has ever faced in a Ryder Cup.
Wow.
More so than, I can't think of a more, let's call it hostile, energized crowd than anywhere in a Ryder Cup than what we're going to face in New York. So we know that. And, it's a dynamic that's not going to change. And we have to be prepared for that. And we have to be ready for that. And we will be ready for it. And Lucas talked about that a lot. And we're talking a lot about it behind the scenes, that it is going to be a very difficult, uncomfortable environment to play in. Away matches are always difficult. I think it's fair to say that, we've nailed the home template, but we haven't nailed the away one. And I think it's also fair to say that the Americans have nailed the home template. America
Yeah.
very, very strong at home. And you look at the performance in Hazeltine, you look at winning by a record margin in Whistling Straits. This is a very formidable American team when they play at home. And then you throw in, the New York crowd that are going to be very energized and patriotic behind the team. So this is going to be a difficult environment to perform in, and we've got to be ready for it. So we know that more than anything.
Mm. Something that came up from going back to the Masters real quick, the whole comments from Bryson about, Rory didn't talk to me the whole day. And whether that was out of context or not, like, what do you make of kind of that whole narrative?
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to be ready for that. I think Rory had unfinished business with Bryson. Um, that's an example of pointy elbows that I'm
Mm.
talking about. That's when Rory's at his best. I feel if you look back at Rory, in my opinion, when he's highly energized, when he's the pointy elbows out and he's a point to prove and his heart is engaged and his emotions are high, that's when he's at his best. You look at his best performances, Gareth. You look at him when he came out on tour first and he was trying to prove his way in the game. It was get out of my way, here I come. There was a vacuum there on the back of Tiger Woods kind of coming off his game that he filled. And he had an air about him, an authority about him, and he was out to prove a point. Another example would be how it all kicked off in the car park in
Ryder
Rome,
Cup, yeah.
and you saw how emotionally he was there on a Saturday night. That shows you he was emotionally charged, and then went out and had for what I believe to be his best ever Ryder Cup in Rome. Uh, and when he's emotionally charged, he plays at his best. And I think that he was in that spot. That's why I say about the evolution of Rory and but a new Rory. There's something different about him, the body language and all of those things. I think Rotella has brought that back to the forefront. I think he was really emotionally engaged last week, and I don't think he would have spoken to anybody on the Sunday, not just Bryson. He was
Interesting.
out. He was out to um to take care of unfinished business in these major championships and in the Masters. And whoever was going to get in his way, he that's the way it was going to be. Get out of my way, here I come. And I think the fact that it was Bryson added it to it because he was part of one of his most painful defeats.
Big time.
But if it had been Tommy Fleetwood, I think he would have been the same with Tommy. I think he would have been he wouldn't have been happy families walking up fairways, chatting and laughing and all of that thing. I think it would have been a strong body language and a sense of determination from Rory
Just knowing what was at stake didn't matter.
because of
Yeah.
what was at stake. And as I say, when he's emotionally charged, I think that's when he's at his best, and that's also when he's at his most flamboyant. That's when he's at his most charismatic, and that's when he's absolutely magnetic to watch, and that he draws us in. When he's on the charge, and the second shot he hit the 15 on Saturday.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I
Remember he
do.
hit that 6 iron from the middle of the fairway again that covered the
Classic.
flag. And the minute he hit it, he walked forward. It was Tiger-esque at his. It was it was Jack Nicklaus at his best. Hit and walk in. Nicklaus's point on to his son Jackie on the 16th when he hit his tee shot into 16 and he bent down to pick up the tee and Jackie said, "Be right," and Nicklaus just said, "It is, it is." That's what's so great about golf. The body language of the players is really important in terms of how it comes across on TV, but you can also read so much from the body language. And know Rory as well as I do. I could read when I saw that second shot on 17. I thought, yeah, there's pointy elbows again.
I love it. Well, knowing Rory as well as you do, I'm always curious in the aftermath, the emotions of text messages and or phone calls after a huge win. And I know I talked to Joey LaCava when Tiger won in 2019. I said, "What was the first text message you got from your boss? Like, what was it?" And he said, "Hey man, thanks for sticking with me. I love you like a brother." He sent it to Joey LaCava on Sunday night. That was the greatest player we've seen in 30 years. It was that emotional attachment. I'm curious for you in any text messages or exchanges with Rory. What has that been like? What have those been?
No, I haven't. I haven't been in touch with him since. I sent Sean. Trying to get hold of Rory is going to be a difficult thing in the next 24 hours. And no, I texted Sean straight away, his agent, to give him the message, so that. Yeah, look, it's great. I mean, I'm so happy for Rory, and I'll see him soon. I'm just thrilled as a person. Like I opened up this podcast more than anything else for the human being behind the great golfer that Rory is. That's what I'm thrilled about. I
Hmm.
mean, imagine if you hadn't have won the Masters, if you hadn't won another major championship again, despite all the success, how tough that would be to live with in his 50s and 60s and 70s. That would have been a tough thing to live with for him. So the fact that he's taken care of this is huge, and also maybe it's opened up the release valve now to go ahead and maybe win some more majors. I've said that for a while. If Rory wins one major, expect him to win three or four more because the pressure that's built will be released, and he may well move on. And of course, we got Quail Hollow where he's won four times coming up next. And you know, I'm sure he's going to get himself back into a good headspace on a golf course that really suits him, you know, to maybe win back to back. And at that stage, then the pressure will mount again because we'll all be talking about is he going to win the Grand Slam this year?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Quail Hollow. As we wrap up here, who are two or the three storylines that you think would be interesting to follow now here at Quail Hollow?
Well, Rory be the big storyline, and there'll be a lot of pressure on him again because he's won around there and dominated. I think Xander played really well last year, and Rory went head to head against him and beat him. Xander's coming back into form. We saw it again last week. He's slowly coming back to form from his injury. He's going to be a factor in these majors the further we go on. I think another month down the road, his game will be in a better place than it has been early season as he's come back from that injury. And I think Scotty as well too. You know, Scotty wasn't a factor all last week. Never really saw him. He never really looked like he's going to raise a gallop. And then you look at the finishing line, he's like, what, fourth, fifth? It's like, whoa. I mean, he's only three shots out of the playoff. And you think, wow, you know, that's the quality player that Scotty is. So again, he's got unfinished business too, in terms of, you know, he hasn't won yet this year. And there's no doubt that he's going to have some success soon and probably win a major this year at some stage. So
Scotty
I
Scheffler.
think that
Yeah.
yeah, Scheffler on top of Xander, I think, and Rory. I think, you know, at this stage, you know, the top three players you'd have to think in the game. Ludwig Oberg, again, had a good week. He's the young guy coming through, finished with a triple bogey on Sunday, which took a lot of gloss off how good a week he had. So he's got to tidy things up, get a little bit more experience. But is he capable of winning majors? Of course he is. He will be one. But I'm looking forward to it. It's a golf course all the players will be familiar with, having played so many times around there on the PGA Tour. They all know it. They know the tricks of it. And it obviously is a golf course that suits Rory's eye with the success that he's had around there. So I'm expecting to see the top players come to the fore there. I'm not expecting to see a surprise winner around Quail Hollow. I'm expecting to see the world's best players coming to the fore and maybe another shootout between some of the world's best players and a stacked leaderboard like we had going into Sunday.
100%. Well, hey, Paul, always appreciate the time. Thanks for jumping on.
You're welcome, Gareth. Thank you.